been a year since I collected this car. I'm usually one to chop and change cars pretty frequently, even more so when you're running a YouTube channel and you're trying to keep things fresh, but I just can't see myself parting with this one. I think it's because I wanted one for so long. I mean, this was the poster on my childhood wall, and honestly, sometimes when I come out and see the car, I still need to pinch myself. For anyone new to the channel, my name's Grant and this is my model year 2000 Ferrari 360 Modena, and for me, this is the epitome of everything an early 2000s Ferrari should be. It's got that manual gated gearbox, it's got the Rosso Corsa paint, it's got the Challenge grills, it's got the Daytona seats, it's got it all. Each detail to me, it's a nod to the motorsport prowess that Ferrari had at that time as they were dominating F1. Interestingly, only 29% of these 360s actually came with that gated manual gearbox, even less so with all these other options, so it's actually quite a rare thing. It seems that in the early 2000s everyone wanted that flappy paddle gearbox like Michael Schumacher had in his car, which is interestingly the exact opposite of what's deemed as more desirable nowadays, which of course is that evocative click-clack of the manual. The wheels, now these are a point that split opinion for sure. Some people love them, some not so much. Usually when you see a 360, it's got that classic Starfish design wheel on it. These were an expensive factory option. They were made by BBS for Ferrari, but just not an awful lot of new owners, new buyers actually spec'd them, so there's not many of them out there. For me personally, I love them. I think they're so fitting for the era of car with the exposed hardware around the outside and the big chunky sidewalls on them. I think it just makes the car a little bit more unique. To drive, I don't think it's an experience that can be replicated by a modern car. I mean, for starters, you got that visceral V8 right behind your head. It takes up about half of your rear view mirror, you're never allowed to forget about it. It's 400 horsepower in what is a relatively lightweight car, so it still feels fast, even by today's standards, but it's not the power that gets you. It's the theatrical, emotional, almost musical sound it makes whilst it exploits that power. One thing that makes this engine so special for me, and I don't see enough people give this recognition, is that it's absolutely woven throughout Ferrari's lineage. You can trace this back to the 50s when Enzo's son Dino, he brought the design to his father. It was a V6 at that point, originally intended for racing, and over the years it was developed and it's found its home in some of Ferrari's most iconic cars, right up until the 360. The 360 was the last one to have it mid-mounted like this. The F430 that came after it, it was a whole new engine design, and as great as that engine is, it's just not steeped in the same Ferrari history as this one is. It's an uncompromising car to drive, and I think this is why a lot of people who come from more modern performance cars, Audi R8s, Nissan GTRs, both of which I've previously had as well, I think this is why they struggle to get along with a 360, or rather, I should say, get along with the maintenance costs that are associated with a Ferrari 360. It's why they can sometimes get a bit of a bad name. Because let me give you an example. So the suspension on a 360 uses rose joints. Now, these wear out really quickly. They're way noisier than a bushing, which is what most cars would have in its place. They're usually reserved for race cars and the likes because they offer greater accuracy with minimal distortion when compared to a bushing. So you can imagine the sensation that as a driver you're getting through the wheel in comparison to something else. The brakes, although not very powerful by today's standards and certainly not on par with the likes of carbon ceramics and the likes that you'll find on Audi R8s, on this car they feel barely assisted. You really need to lean on that pedal if you want to be pulling it up quickly. But then again, the car's relatively lightweight compared to some of the more contemporary performance cars that we could compare it to here. 360, it prefers confident, intentional inputs. If you're trying to be too careful with it, if you're trying to be too delicate with it, the car doesn't thank you for it. Even things like the pedals, they're super tight together, something that I don't think Ferrari would even produce now for fear of backlash from customers who would buy one and not really understand what they're buying. But what it does mean is heel and toe downshifts are a breeze. For me, the directness of the drive, the nostalgia, the heritage, the noise, it just encapsulates everything that I could personally ever want from a car. That's why I don't think giving a subjective review on a car like this does it justice, because performance figures and comparisons with more modern cars, it isn't going to capture what makes a car like this so special. Even 1 year on, I still drink in the design details every time I see this car. From the front wings that harken back to the P3 race car, to the swooping, uninterrupted body panels that were so common in 90s car design, which I just love. I think there's a real elegance to it that's been emphasised by the aggression of more modern Ferraris and other cars as well. There's no big wings, there's no aggressive diffusers, just simple Pininfarina timeless design. Every opening and vent as well, it serves a purpose, whether it's to feed an airbox or cool off a radiator. There's no design on this car for design's sake, and I really like that. It's functional. I know not everyone's going to agree, but this is absolutely the kind of experience that I personally want to get from a special car. And I say this absolutely sincerely. I owe cars like the 360 a lot because they're one of the reasons that I tried so hard in life. They're one of the reasons that I got involved in the automotive engineering world, working with designers and engineers, creating parts that we likely all have in our cars now. It's one of the reasons why I started this very YouTube channel. Not to buy my own one, but just to be around and involved with cars like this, to possibly experience them. Did I ever think I'd be sat on the sill of my own one talking to you about it? Absolutely not. And on a day like this, when the sun's shining and we pull it out and we're doing a bit of filming, it just doesn't get better. Apart from when things go a little bit wrong. We were driving around today, getting some footage for this very video, and up popped the dreaded engine light. I'm not adding this for dramatic effect. 1 year I've owned this car now, evidently. Not a single problem, and today of all days, the check engine light comes on, so it looks like we're going to need to get it in and see exactly what's going wrong. Maybe I'll make another video on that, telling you what's going wrong and how much it costs to fix.